Hello, this is Alex from the infant feeding team. This is a session that we've been doing every week now. That's about our 27th, 28th week. And it's specifically about feeding. Any questions you've got about feeding in those early days, coping with your baby in those early days, or if you're expecting a baby and you haven't had it yet, questions you might have about feeding going forward and what to expect about poos and wees and sleep patterns and things like that. That's what this session's about. It's not a specific, it's specific about feeding. It's not really about anything else. So if you've got questions about services going forward and things, I'll do my best, but that isn't really the forum to be coming to. Wendy Randall did a really good session on Monday on Ask the Midwife, which you'll be able to find on the Oxfordshire Midwife OMVP, Oxfordshire Maternity Voices Partnership, about services going forward. I think very much at the moment it is status quo. So as I said, I'm Alex, I'm from Infant Feeding, and it's lovely to see those numbers all racking up already. I can see lots of people coming up there. And hopefully you've got some questions for me today, because I much prefer it when I've got questions to answer as opposed to having to think of things to say. So do by all means start thinking about the questions you want to pose, and I'll do my best to answer them. This is the third week I've been doing it on my own. I'm really hoping I'll be back in the hospital next week and be doing it with my colleague Naomi, or one of the other team members will be doing it. We're a team of 5, although only 3 full-time equivalents, so you may see different ones for us. So I'm Alex, my joint team lead is Hannah, and there's Naomi, Eliza and Sarah. We all work together very closely. We run the breastfeeding clinics, we answer telephone calls and emails, we liaise with GPs and ward staff, we see people on the wards if that's what they need, we see people antenatally if they have any particular needs in the antenatal period. So our role is quite diverse, and we're seeing more and more antenatal mummies now these days, which is really handy. So if you're sitting out there thinking, I really probably could do with a bit of support in the antenatal period because I may have had a really difficult time last time, or I anticipate problems going forward, then please do get in touch with us. Our contact details are on the Oxfordshire on the Oxford University Hospitals Trust website, so OUH, and if you look there, go to maternity, then go to feeding, and you'll find all our contact details there, so you can reach us. So if you think you could do with some contact with us, that's that way about doing it. I can see people coming up and saying hello to Marion, nice to see you, and I can see lots of faces coming up on your icons, which is really nice. So I'm just going to open this up on my laptop, so that allows me to see the questions as they come through. So hopefully we'll get some questions coming through. I thought I'd talk about donated breast milk a little bit today. I know we've talked about this on this sessions before, but some of you may not have heard us talking about it before. Donated breast milk is amazing. It's an amazing commodity that our wonderful mums out in Oxfordshire donate. They go through a process where they're triaged to make sure that they're okay to be donating their milk. So any medications they might be taking will be checked, and the milk is checked when it comes in for bacteria counts, pasteurised and then checked again. And as long as it passes all of that, then we're able to use it. And first and foremost, as you can probably imagine, it always goes on to the neonatal unit, which is what it's been for. But we've been so lucky over the last few months that we've had so much milk that we've been able to use it quite freely on the maternity wards, and keep many of those mummies having their babies if there's been a bit of a shortfall or they've been struggling to get the supply up, been able to give them donated breast milk, which we've been so lucky about. So if you're out there and you've got more milk than you need at this moment in time, stockpile it in your freezer, maybe contact Amanda Wood at the milk bank, and she would be more than delighted to just have a discussion with you about whether you could donate it. Or if you haven't had your baby yet and you find afterwards you've got more than you need for your baby, but obviously your baby comes first, your baby's the first one to get it. But if at the end of it you find, I'm actually accumulating a bit in my freezer, it's not all being used, then we would be more than delighted to make the most of it. And the mums in the hospital will be so happy to be able to use human milk for their lovely babies. Now I can see questions coming through, so I'm going to have a quick look. And I've got a computer next to me, so bear with me while I quickly look at the questions and see what we've got coming. So we had a hello from Marion, we've got a hi from Imi as well. Hi Imi, nice to hear from you. Lucy's come on. Can you confirm the frosting, defrosting and storage guidelines for express harvest colostrum? Right, so if it's your own, it is slightly different to if it's been frozen because of it's in the donated milk, because donated milk is pasteurised. That is slightly different. So with regard to storage, if it's your milk, you've frozen it and you've defrosted it, we would like you to use it within 12 hours, please. That's because some of the properties that protect your milk that are there before you freeze it are lost a little bit when they're frozen. So use it within 12 hours, which is why when we say to you, if you're going to bring express colostrum in with you when you're having your babies, don't bring too much in, because unfortunately if it gets defrosted and we don't manage to use it within 12 hours, we're going to have to throw it away. So do use it. So you can store it, because you've said about the freezing and the defrosting, so you can collect it over a day or two and then freeze it. In fact, human milk is fine at room temperature for 6 hours. If it's actually colostrum, it's 24, but let's not confuse that. It can then go in the fridge for 5 days and then be frozen. But if you know you're going to freeze it, you may as well freeze it straight away, and then defrost it and use it within 12 hours. So I hope that answers your question, Lucy. Amy has put a question up too. Her little boy's 3 months. How often and how many ounces should he be having in formula? That's very much, I would have a quick look at the tin on the formula and see what it's recommending with regard to that, because the amount of milk a baby needs continues to grow with formula, because it's a finite amount of nutrients in a finite amount of liquid. So unlike breast milk, which is constantly changing but within the same volume of milk, of fluid, formula milk does have to keep going up. Watch your baby. Your baby's your best guideline. I mean, what they'll put on the tin is probably going to be more than your baby will need. So if you think about that as your upper limit, and just watch what they're looking for, because what we're always talking about is responsibly feeding your baby. So watch his cues, Amy, and just see what he's asking for. Is he pooing and weeing appropriate to his age? Is he meeting all his milestones? And go with that, really, rather than being too worried about the volumes. And as long as he's growing appropriately, he might be looking for slightly less than they recommend on the tin. They might be looking for slightly more, but that doesn't matter. As long as he's growing, that's fine. So sorry not to give you specific numbers, because I can't really, because every baby's slightly different. So I hope that helps a little bit anyway, Amy, and reassures you. Jessica said she struggled to breastfeed last time because her baby had a posterior tongue tie, and it was cut at 5 weeks. Gosh, that was quite late, you poor love. I was under the hospital in the end with a feeding plan, but sadly couldn't get the supply up enough. I'm due on Sunday and would like to try to breastfeed again. However, I don't want to add pressure to myself if I can't. If I was to continue combined feed, some breast and formula, how would be best to do it? Well, we'd normally recommend, if you're planning on combination feeding or mixed feeding, or whatever you want to call it, that you get your milk supply established and then start introducing formula after that, because otherwise you could have a bit of a knock-on effect in your milk supply, because it's so critical in that first week or so to really get it going. So concentrate on breastfeeding first, and then you can look at introducing formula if that's what you want to do later. You never know, things might go completely differently. We always say each lactation is independent. So you're having another baby. It's like having a new dance partner. So it's starting from scratch. You never know, things might go really differently this time. If you're having problems, obviously we tend to say give it 7 days before we really diagnose a tongue tie, because so many other factors could be coming into play before the 7 days that impacting on feeding, before we definitely say it's a tongue tie that's impacting on feeding. Clinics, as far as we're aware, are continuing. So if you are struggling, get in touch. If we obviously, it sounds like we knew you before, do get in touch. And, if you're having problems, and get yourself booked into clinic. And we can, as you know, we do oral assessments, and we would have a watch of feeding, and we'd make a decision about whether we thought it was, something else we could be working on, or whether it was the tongue tie that was impacting on feeding. But try and go in with a slightly open mind. I know it's hard after what happened last time, and believe that it's going to work. But have those tools ready, like contacting us, getting expressing early on, ready, so that you have a good experience this time and we don't end up with you having problems. But so see how you get on with that, and I really hope this time it's going to be different for you, Jessica. It would be really good, wouldn't it? Let's see how you get on. But you know where we are. Get in touch. Emma has said, hi Alex, her little boy's 5 weeks tomorrow. He's been exclusively breastfeeding so far, but would like to express that my husband can give 1 bottle a day in the evening. So Emma, what we would normally suggest is most women find they've got more milk than they need in the mornings. It's amazing. Why would that be? I've no idea, because you tend to be up a lot of the night feeding, but yet most women in the Western world tend to have more milk than they need in the mornings. So once you've fed your little boy, try pumping then, and then that might give you a bit of milk to give an additional bottle in the evenings. And I would think try the bottle when he's not desperately hungry, because what happens is if he's desperately hungry, he's going to go, well, this isn't what I'm expecting. This isn't how I'm fed. So he will be thinking, well, this isn't going to work for me. So what you want to be doing is maybe just don't try it when he's not desperately hungry. If you've never used a bottle before, let him have a fiddle around, work out that actually it does work, he does get milk from it. Might be worth your partner doing it rather than you, because if he's desperately hungry, if he's hungry, he's going to keep turning towards you thinking, well, the milk's over here, it's not in this, I'm not expecting it in a bottle. So things to try would be expressing in the morning after you've already fed, because most women get most milk then. Evenings can be quite disappointing if you're trying to express. Many women don't get much milk in the evenings when they're pumping. And to try him on the bottle at times when he's not desperately hungry. Let him have a go with the bottle, see that it works for him, and maybe get your partner to try the bottle rather than you, and see how you get on with it. And hopefully he'll take a bottle. So don't let it become a place of conflict between the two of you. Try and keep it positive, because if he gets to the point where he thinks, well, it doesn't work, I don't want it, he's just going to scream and shout and it's not going to work. So try and keep it low key, calm it right down, and see how you get on with that. And if he starts getting upset, let him have the breast and then try again later. See how you get on. Hope that works for you, Emma. Right, Lucy has said it's age limited, isn't it? As I try to donate when my daughter is 9 months. Usually it's under 6, but do check, because these things change. Lucy, have a quick chat with, or email Amanda Wood. Her name is Amanda Wood singular, and just see if what the situation is now, because sometimes it changes. And actually, there's the Hearts Milk Bank, which if you look it up, heart as in our hearts, the Hearts Milk Bank, they take donors later as well, so they might be happy if you've got milk that's from a baby that's older than 6 months. But do check with Amanda, because this isn't always. Sometimes these things change, so you never know. It might be over 9 months now. We have been extremely lucky with the donations we've had, but we're always looking for more. Can never have too much. Right, I've answered that one. Sorry. Marianne said her little boy's 8 weeks old now. He's fully breastfeeding and wants to add formula milk because I'm starting work 1 day a week. What formula milk is the best for mixed feeding? They're all the same. Formula milks are all identical. They have to meet government guidelines, so they are absolutely the same regardless of what claims they make. So one may claim one thing over another, but they're no different. Your baby will be just the same on all the milks. They have exactly the same core constituents for growth. So you could buy the cheapest. You could go to any of the brand supermarket names and buy one of those rather than the name you might see advertised. So there is no one formula better than another. Your baby will be just the same. Had you thought about expressing? I'll just suggest, because obviously if you've managed 8 weeks of exclusivity, then actually maybe you could carry on with that, and it could be express breast milk for your baby as well. Just something to consider, because also if you're going to be at work and you've been expressing up till now, you've been feeding up to now, you're going to probably need to express while you're at work too. So that will give you the milk for your next day, so you could bring that milk home and that would be ready for the next day of work. So perhaps you could think about giving express breast milk instead, because you'll really struggle, I think, if you've been exclusively breastfeeding for 8 weeks to not be expressing during your working day. You'll get very uncomfortable and at risk of mastitis. So that one might be an alternative, to think about giving express milk as opposed to moving on to formula, and then you maintain exclusivity, which would be obviously great. But with regard to formulas, there's no one formula better than another. They're all the same, and you can buy the cheapest and you'll be doing your baby no disservice and saving yourself some pennies. So no problem on that one. So I hope that helps, Mariam. But well done for getting to 8 weeks. Absolutely fantastic. Marta has come up and said she's due in 10 days. and it's her first baby, and she's heard about a breastfeeding method called the Thompson Method. Could you please tell me, what do you think about it? Well, from what I can understand from the Thompson Method, it is pretty much exactly what we teach anyway. It's just a lady has coined it with her own name. It's very much what we do. We're all the lactation consultants will teach pretty much the same thing. She's just put a name on it. If you look at UNICEF Baby Friendly and the way they teach breastfeeding, or and that's what we tend to do, is the way we teach it. It is the same. So Thompson is not really any different to what we're all teaching. As much as possible, we let babies try and self-attach, certainly at the first feed, and we don't try not to force babies. In fact, we really try not to force babies to feed. We let babies sort it out for themselves as much as we can. We do find that some mums need to be, depending on how the baby's reacting, they need to be in charge of putting the baby in the right place, but we don't push babies, or we don't force babies to feed when they don't want to. I would say we pretty much embrace everything that she's now put a name to, but it's pretty much what we're all teaching as lactation consultants, so not really any different to what we're doing. We have come across mums coming into the hospital saying they're using the Thompson Method, and I can't see that it's greatly different to what we're already doing, to be honest. So I hope that reassures you, because you shouldn't be getting anything terribly different from the way that we teach mothers to feed in the hospital or in the community. Lucy said, you say not to start formula before 7 days, but I know several friends who gave up trying to breastfeed because they didn't feel they could do both. My friend just used Expressed and some formula in early days as her nipples were so traumatised. She's now exclusively breastfeeding, but that early bridge helped her to keep going with some breaks from her nipples. There's definitely a point to that, but we would be, as much as possible, we'd always be giving express breast milk, and that's what we sometimes use the donated for in the hospital. So we've got a mother who's in with us, and if we've got enough donated, we'll use that as that bridge. We'll use donated milk as that bridge, so that we don't break the exclusivity, because we do know that the best health outcomes for babies are exclusive breastfeeding for up to 6 months, and that's recommended by WHO, WHO, and UNICEF Baby Friendly Initiative, and it's based on research that babies that are exclusively breastfed for the first 6 months of their lives have better health outcomes in the long run, including protection from obesity, where they regulate their intake. There's all sorts of enzymes and hormones in breast milk that help regulate their intake, like leptin. So there's so many factors involved in it that we do know that the research supports trying to maintain exclusivity. But obviously there are occasions when we do need to use formula, and as I mentioned, we're extremely lucky in the UK when we do use formula. It's very safe to do so in many respects, that we have access to clean water and sterilising our equipment, and we know how to, we're able to make it up safely. So there are occasions when a bridge, if it needs to be formula and get some other breastfeeding, that is the appropriate action at that point in time. But it would be a case-by-case basis, and as much as possible, we'll always try and support mothers to bridge that gap with their own express breast milk. If they're with us in hospital, we might use donated, and if they haven't got that choice, then obviously formula would be the option. But I'm delighted to hear about your friend, and that's quite a common story, that they've been so sore that they haven't been able to feed. But I'm really pleased that she's come out the other side, and we would support women with that, and in fact do it a lot of anyway. Lucy's baby is now 13 days old now. Congratulations. Let me see what else we've got. Lucy said about the other Lucy was saying about same Lucy, sorry, I get confused which Lucy I'm talking about now. But they had the same limits at the Heart's Milk Bank. Okay, I thought they were a bit more flexible on that one, but maybe I'm wrong. I'm not the expert on that, but I will check. We're very lucky because we have access Heart's Milk Bank. We've had a few mums come through us recently who've needed ongoing donated breast milk, and in extenuating circumstances, the Heart's Milk Bank will donate donated breast milk to mothers who, for one reason or another, are unable to feed their own babies but really, really want to give their babies human milk. So we're very lucky to be able to access them when we need to. Emma's come back saying, thank you, is there an amount I should aim for the bottle? A few ounces. We have Tommy Tippy bottles to try. Hopefully he'll be all right with those, but if not, others have recommended Mam or Minby, but don't really want to buy any more unless necessary. And to be honest, your baby's got to get used to using a bottle that's very different to the breast. So Tommy Tippy's probably as good as any of them, to be honest. Just give them a go. But when we're talking about it, we're looking at babies doing it responsively. So we talk about responsive bottle feeding. So it's having, I'm going to use my doll, having your baby in really nice and close, and getting the bottle and brushing down the lips, encouraging your baby to open their mouth with a nice big wide gape and allowing them to take the bottle in so that just the teat that's in their mouth is full. It does not need to be right up to here. So we don't want bottles like that, because what happens is that if this had water in it, you'd see it drip, 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 and the baby has to feed at that speed and they can't control the flow. So if we keep it in a more neutral position like this, then the teat that's in the baby's mouth is full, so they're not taking air in, but not all of this will be full, which means the baby can control the flow. Because if a baby's flat on their back with a bottle like this, they have to feed at the speed of the bottle. Whereas if the baby's upright and in close, and then the bottle is at this angle, then the baby can control the flow. And you'll notice the baby stops and starts and stops and starts, like they do when they're breastfeeding, and allows them to think about whether they want any more, to have a break when they need them, and they don't have to keep going at the speed that the bottle is delivering the milk. So it's much nicer for the baby in that position. So in a way, that's much more important than the bottles or the teats that you're using, is to use that responsive bottle feeding technique. Right, we whip up again. So just see how you get on, and I think many women are using Tommy Tippies. That was an Avent one that I've got here that was we've used in the past. So but in the hospital we tend to use sort of slightly different ones. We use Nook teats in the hospital, but you know, they're all much for muchness, and none of them are like a breast, none of them. So Lucy's come back. Oh, Lucy said, thanks for these talks. Thank you, Lucy. It really helps when we hear from people to say they find them useful. It's always good. Tan has asked, is it okay to have an occasional alcoholic drink with a meal? Baby's 7 weeks old. Absolutely. Yes. I mean, there's no. I mean, in fact, in the past, if you ask people, mothers were actively encouraged to drink Guinness and stout, and it was told that it was good for them. An occasional drink will be fine. What we know is that the alcohol level in your blood is the same as is in your milk. So if you're going to have a drink, the ideal time would be after you fed, because what happens is as the alcohol level in your blood drops, it drops from the breast milk as well. So it's being, you know, when it says to you how many units and a period of time to remove them from your body when you're thinking about driving, so it's a unit an hour. Well, it's exactly the same with breast. So yes, a little bit of the alcohol will go through into the breast milk, but if you're not, you know, if you haven't had lots and you've got a bit of a gap, then that's fine, because the alcohol level will drop. So by all means, if a glass of wine is what you would like to relax in the evening, or a glass of champagne to toast the baby's arrival, there's no reasons why you couldn't have a little bit of something that you like in that respect. If you have lots, if women drink a lot of alcohol, it's known to inhibit their letdown. So what happens is that when they then go to feed the baby, the letdown doesn't happen. So that can cause a problem. And obviously, if you have got a lot of alcohol in your body, then it's also in the milk. That isn't great. But the occasional drink, with moderation, it shouldn't be a problem. So I hope that's reassuring. I'm sure you'll enjoy that. Moving on. So I hope that's all right, Tam. Bit of a reassurance. Marta's come back. About the Thompson Method, one thing that they say, they need to do skin to skin for a long time straight after labour, at least an hour. Recommended 2 to 3. I've been told that in the delivery suite they don't let you do that for so long. Is that true? Would it be inconvenient for you if I asked to be for longer with him? We would encourage you to have skin to skin, and BFI suggest it for as long as the mother wants, for at least an hour, and until after the first feed. The crucial thing is that a baby feeds when a baby is born, before it's removed from its mother. So we would be actively encouraging you to have skin to skin for as long as it takes for your baby to be at the breast. Put it on your birth plan that you want skin to skin until after the baby has fed. It won't be a big surprise to staff, because that's what they see a lot. You know, they know that we want to be doing as much skin to skin. We know that brings out the best breastfeeding behaviour. It gives you the best chance of feeding. Once your baby has fed, that's the time you could be doing other things. It's that up to and after the first feed is crucial. So I would say that we will facilitate that as much as possible. The things that get in the way is that a baby has to have a form completed called an NN4B, and that form is completed by the midwife that delivers your baby, or that's present when your baby's born, and she has to put a weight on that. So it would be worth having a conversation with your midwife and say, if need be, can we weigh my baby really early on? And then you put the baby back skin to skin, and then you don't have to move the baby again. And you can go up to the wards with your baby still in skin to skin. You don't have to have a shower before you leave the delivery suite. You can have a shower once you're up on the wards. So there's no hurry to get you out in that respect. You know, even if there's a need for the room and you've been in the room for a little while, your baby can still go skin to skin and go upstairs with you. It does not need to be dressed before the baby leaves. So you can keep your baby skin to skin. So Marta, we will support you with as much skin to skin as possible. Absolutely. Pop it in your birth plan as well. Have a discussion with the midwife that's looking after you when you're when you're in with labour, and make sure your partner knows about it too, because if you're engrossed in your labour, you may not be the person who can have that conversation, but your partner can. So make sure your partner knows exactly what you want and have a discussion with your midwife. But we will facilitate it as much as we can. Hopefully that's reassuring you. So Lottie has come through. Once you've given birth, do you encourage the baby to have a feed before going home? Would I need to pack formula in my hospital bag just in case the baby does not want to feed from the breast? Thanks. Hello, Lottie. Well, if you are intending on breastfeeding, we would be helping you to express. If your baby didn't attach, we would help you to hand express as the first and foremost. We wouldn't rush into giving you formula. And in fact, as I mentioned earlier, we've been talking about donated today. If your baby isn't attaching and you're struggling to hand express, and we've got to sort of 24 plus hours old, we would probably make some donated milk available. We wouldn't be doing it in the first 24 hours because most babies don't need any extra milk at that point in time. But go into it believing you're going to do it. Your confidence in your ability to feed your baby is crucial. So go in going, I'm going to do this. I'm going to have a lovely baby and I'm going to feed my baby. I've grown a gorgeous baby. Why can't I feed my baby? So go in with utter confidence that you're going to do it, and the likelihood is it will happen. As mentioned just now with Marta talking about the skin to skin is utterly crucial. It makes such a difference having that early, ongoing, uninterrupted skin to skin. Makes such a big difference to the likelihood of your baby attaching and feeding at the breast after birth. So keep your baby close, don't hand them over, don't give them to your partner. And I know that sounds cruel as can be, but actually they need to be with you. They need to be with you, skin to skin, learning this is my mum, this is what she's like, I'm going to feed from her. If your baby's passed away and comes back again, they go through a set of procedures, 9 stages. They get back to the beginning, and actually then what happens sometimes is that they then fall asleep before they've finished. So please hang on to your baby, keep your baby skin to skin, whatever, and let your baby have that first feed with you before you hand your baby over for cuddles with anybody else. And ideally the wait is after the baby's been skin to skin and fed, or very early on, straight after birth. See how you get on with that, and hopefully that will work. But come in confident it's going to work. You do not need to bring formula in. If we need to feed your baby, we have other ways of feeding your baby. We have donated, and if it's your choice to give formula, we do have formula, but we would first and foremost be getting your baby to feed. If you can't do that, we will be helping you to express. If we're really struggling with that, we are worried, then we'd be looking at donated before we ever thought about formula. Formula's right down the bottom of the pile on this respect. So come in positive, Lottie. Emma said, thank you, that's super helpful. We'll see how we get on. Brilliant. Look, good luck with that, Emma. Jazz has said, my baby's 5 months old, exclusively breastfed. He's consistently woken every 2 hours, since sometimes less, for a feed, possibly comfort, but I still feed. During the newborn stage, he woke even more as expected. I'm just concerned he should be sleeping for longer stretches by now. Jazz, I'm assuming he's meeting all his milestones. He's doing everything he needs to do. Babies just love to check in. They just like to know that you're there, that their mummy's still there right next to them. It's not uncommon, and I've heard of older babies doing it too. It will happen in time. Your baby will eke out those gaps. The La Leche talk about, you start seeing these rhythms appear. It does get better, I promise. He won't do this forever. And you mentioned possibly for comfort. Well, that's what a lot of feeding is. Feeding is a lot to do with comfort. And actually, there's a wonderful saying, which I've said on this a few times before, It's on the BFI, UNICEF BFI website. It says, I feed my baby for comfort. The nutrition sorts itself out. And that's very much what's happening. Babies are checking in with you, that you're still there, meeting their needs, and they just love that reassurance. And feeding is as much for comfort as it is for food. And you're obviously doing an amazing job meeting your baby's needs there, Jazz. Tough as it is, I'm sure. Good luck with it, and I hope it starts to eke out a bit. That you're allowed to have a little bit more of a gap at times. I'm sure you've tried things like having a t-shirt in the bed with your baby that smells of you, that you've been wearing, because that can be reassuring. And I'm sure you've tried things like putting your hand on the baby and things like that. But hopefully it's just going to pass in time. I suppose in a way, I know 5 months feels like a long time, but in many respects it's still quite a short length of time. You were pregnant for longer than this still as well. So thinking about in relation to the timing, your baby at 5 months is still very young. And obviously at 5 months, you're getting to that point now where you're going to be thinking about giving other foods when you get to 6 months. And you may find that helps a bit as well. So offering other foods when you get to 6 months. So looking at offering complementary foods alongside breastfeeding. So breastfeeding is still going to be the most important food your baby gets for the first year of their life. My colleague Hannah, my co-lead, always says food before 1 is just for fun. But they do ingest food at that point. They are once you go to 6 months and you're beginning to introduce other foods, and you can either go, there are lots of ways of doing it. You can do the finger food way of doing it with the baby-led weaning. Some people like to use the more sort of pureed food, but to be honest, it doesn't have to be too pureed, because once the babies have got to 6 months, they'll cope with lumps quite well. You might find that helps space those feeds out a little bit because they're getting additional food, but it's not long to go now, so hopefully you'll start seeing once you start to introduce other foods. But keep going, because you've done a great job. Don't spoil it now. You're absolutely brilliant. You've done a great job. Jazz, I hope I know I keep saying that today, I hope it's reassuring. I feel like I'm reassuring everyone today, but hopefully that will help. And just think you haven't long to go till you can start adding in other foods, and that might take the pressure off you a little bit. Hattie's come through and said she's just wondering if there's any news on Wantage being open for birth. Hattie, I'm sorry, at the moment there isn't. We haven't heard any more on that, I'm afraid. And we will keep people posted, because the Wantage team are as keen as anybody to be open again for birth. It's a shame not to have it open at the moment. So yeah, we're watching that at the moment and seeing what's happening. But keep watching. There's the forums that will be useful for knowing about that. Hattie would be doing the Ask the Midwife sessions, so attending Wendy's sessions. She did one on Monday this week. I'm not sure when her next one will be, but Wendy's the one to ask, and I know that came up the other day as well. Tan's come back. Thank you. You're always so reassuring, and it's great to have such an informative advice. Thank you, Tan. I'm glad that you found it helpful. Marta said, thank you, Alex. Honestly, your talks in the last weeks have made me more relaxed and confident about feeding the baby and going to labour. You're amazing. Well, keep coming in, checking in with us. It won't always be me. It'll be Naomi and Hannah and people, but it's because I'm at home and it's easiest for me to do it, because the others are on the wards working at the moment. It's easier for me to escape. But I'm glad you find them useful. We have got lots of good feedback on them, and we're aware that you're out there a lot of the time. Many of you feeling quite alone and struggling, and we've just gone into another lockdown, and that's not going to help. But we're hoping that we've all learned from the last lockdown, and that people will feel a lot more supported this time. But yeah, keep coming. We love having your questions. We like this interaction. It's really handy, and it's good to know what's happening out with all of you, and before and after you've had your babies, and it shows where we should be focusing our work on as well. Hattie's got another question, and don't apologise for it, Hattie, that's no problem. Do we need to bring our own express machine just in case she doesn't latch straight after weight? No, we have, to be honest, when you first have your baby, we will be doing hand expressing with you. Colostrum is thick and gloopy. I think I've shown this picture before, but when you have your baby, the first milk that you have is colostrum, and it's thick and gloopy. And in fact, if anything, this doesn't really show how yellow it can be. Some people's colostrum is really, really yellow. And then it goes into sort of traditional milk and then mature milk, and it sort of changes. But the first few days after a baby, well, from from about 26 weeks pregnant until 3 or 4 days after the baby's born. It's only colostrum, and it's tiny weeny amounts because a baby's tummy is tiny, as I've mentioned on these sessions before. We're talking about a newborn baby having the tummy the size of a marble, absolutely minute. But colostrum is a food in concentrate. It's thick and gloopy. It's like golden syrup, and it's all that a baby needs to line their tummy, to stop anything else getting through the layer of the stomach. It's like a white paint on it, and giving them, it's a laxative, so it gets rid of the meconium that's in their stomachs that helps protect them against jaundice going forward. And it gives them everything they need in the first few days, because they don't need lots of food in the first few days. Then your milk comes in somewhere between days 3 and 5, and the volume of milk that you produce will go up and up and up as long as you're asking for it. It goes up really quickly until most women will produce in the region of 750 mils a day from about 2 weeks onwards. So you can see you're going from a tiny weeny stomach that's literally a mil or two right up to producing 750 mils within a couple of weeks. So hand expressing is what we do initially, because if you imagine expressing thick and gloopy into, for instance, this is a hand pump, expressing into a hand pump, all that's going to happen is it's going to get stuck here and you'll lose it. So we collect it either into a teaspoon, a tiny pot, or a syringe, and that means we don't waste any of it, and all of it goes to the baby. You can even just do it onto your finger. So don't worry about bringing anything in. If you're still in with us and you're expressing, and we've got to the stage, and let's hope not, you've got to the stage where we're expressing mature milk, we have pumps, so you don't need to bring anything with you. So just come in expecting to feed your baby, and that, so don't need to bring any equipment with you at all, Hattie. So hopefully that helps. So just you've got everything you need. Lottie's come back and said thank you. Emma, sorry me again, no apologies. How many ounces would you suggest to start with for the first bottle? Obviously he might not take it all, but just good to know what to aim for when expressing. Well, we would suggest you just express whatever you can. So when you're expressing, because if that's something you want to keep doing, then it's a good thing to be asking the body for that milk. So when you fed your baby and you go to express, if you're, let's say you're using that hand pump I had, you'd put that on, well, massage the breast, think about your baby, get pumping, and this sort of pump you would be doing quick to get the let down, and then in and hold and watch the milk running down. And the hold is important, like hand expressing. It's that long hold, release, go again, release, go again. The release is the quick bit, the hold is the long bit. Do that until you see no more milk coming. Go to the other side, go back to the first, go back to the second, go back to the first. And the guide for swapping is that it's not coming anymore. So that you've pumped till you get no more, you go to the other side, pump till you get no more, go back to the first, pump till you get no more. What you would then do with regard to giving it to your baby, depending on how much you've got, you might just give a little bit. Get them used to the idea of the bottle before you go and put it all in the bottle, because let's say you've got 40 mils or 50 mils. If you've put that all into the bottle and it's been in the baby's mouth and they haven't taken it, we have to throw it away. So, because it's got to be used within an hour. So we would say just put a bit in the bottle, let your baby get the idea of the bottle, and you can always add a bit more. And that's what we would normally be suggesting, because it's really heartbreaking when you express milk if you then have to throw it away because the baby hasn't taken it all. It's much better to offer a small amount and add a bit more. And if they're looking for more, add a bit more. So have a bottle that you've got as a storage container and a bottle that you're giving it in, and then you just keep decanting more and more as you need to. But with the expressing side of it, if that's something you know you want to do, just get off as much as you can, because the more you keep doing that, the more milk you'll get. So the first time you might do it, you might not get very much because you're not used to expressing. It's another skill to learn, like breastfeeding. You need to get the body to think about it. So with the body, you've got to trick the body. If you think about when you're going to breastfeed your baby, you pick your baby up and you look at your baby and oxytocin flows. So that's fantastic. But when you pick a piece of plastic up, oxytocin doesn't flow. So actually you have to get used to pumping. So it's another skill to get. So that's why we say massage beforehand, looking at your baby, thinking about your baby, think how much you love them, smell their heads, and then do your pumping and see how you get on. And because babies feed and pause and feed and pause, we say that do one side, go to the other, do the other side, go back to the first, do the other side, being guided by the flow all the way along so that you get numerous letdowns, which is what a baby would get to. Hope that makes sense, because I know I've gone into quite a lot of depth there. So rather than thinking about how much the baby will take, get off as much as you can, because that you want to establish that supply, and then only offer a little bit and top it up as and when you need to, and see how you get on. Right, I'm moving on if that's okay. Jessica's come through. Is there an approximate amount of express breast milk that babies need based on age, weight? My baby's 5 weeks tomorrow but seems to drink all milk offered in the bottle. Amount varies from 80 to 150. Can they drink too much from a bottle? Answering the last question first, it is easier to overfeed with a bottle, and as I showed you earlier, the responsive feeding technique, that usually helps with that. That means babies have a better chance of saying, okay, I'm full now, I don't need any more, because you'll watch them, they won't be feeding. If the bottle's upright, they have to keep feeding. If the bottle's horizontal, as I showed earlier, if it's horizontal, as long as this bit's full, horizontal, they can stop when they want to. And if you notice they're beginning to feel a bit, sort of be a bit less interested in the feed, you could take it out and see what happens, and if they're then looking for more, you offer more, so that it's easier to be guided by them. So definitely it's easier to overfeed with a bottle regardless of what's in the bottle, but the technique helps. But with regard to the volume, it's quite interesting you put 80 to 150, because we tend to say that a full-size stomach is somewhere between 80 and 150. So the stomach size of a baby, so this is about 85. So but you know, a grown baby with having mature milk will have somewhere in the region of 80 to 150 of feed. So your baby's pretty spot on, to be honest. So somewhere in that region. But think about how are you giving it. Maybe trying that your baby's more upright, the bottle's more horizontal, and you might find they take slightly less. Okay, see how you get on with that then. Moving on, because I can see lots of questions coming through, and we're already 3:10. Very busy day today. Susan's come through. My son's 2.5 weeks, exclusively breastfeeding, likes to cluster feed. His weight and nappies are great. Ever since my milk came in, we've had difficulty getting him to maintain a proper latch. I may start him in a beautiful nose snip or open mouth latch, chin to breast, but he always starts pursing his lips and sucking on my nipple painfully by the end of the feed. If I pop him off to relatch properly, he goes back to narrowing his mouth. He'll do this over 10 times in a row. Oh, you poor love. So I'll give up trying to fix it. I've had video calls with OBS and asked for advice from LLL. That's La Leche. And they suggest that my letdown is too strong. I've used a hand pump for 30 seconds to a minute prior to feeds to lighten it, and he still does it. I try different positions, but all are painful for me. A midwife suggested he might have a mild tongue tie. Could this be the issue? A tongue tie could result in the baby drifting backwards because they just can't maintain the latch. So there is a possibility with that. I can't remember. Let me just scoot back up to the top of your question again. 2.5 weeks, Susan. We could probably see you in clinic and do an oral assessment and check that out. So why don't you get in touch and make an appointment? The other thing to think about is having, and you may already be doing this, is more laid back positions, that your baby hasn't got that option to pull back quite so easily because gravity's on their side, holding them in against you. So it's, thinking about getting your baby on and then taking yourself back, so that gravity holds the baby in position. So it might maybe trying that. And obviously you've had lots of support. OBS and LLL are fabulous and offer great support. But if you're feeling that that's still not working for you, why don't you give us a shout in the breastfeeding, see if we can book you into the breastfeeding clinic. Give our office a ring, and they can we'll try and get you booked in for as soon as possible. I'm not sure what clinic's looking like for next week. It may be the week after, but if it is a tongue tie and they're drifting back, then that might be part of it. But as you've already had plenty of support, we'd be more than happy to see you in clinic. So why don't you give us a call? We'll listen out for your name then, and hopefully you can get in. So good luck with that, Susan, and well done for managing 2.5 weeks, because that's really tough when it's sore. It is not funny at all. I'm going to move on. Jazz has come back. Thank you so much. I enjoy the nighttime snuggles. Well, that's the right attitude. Well done, Jazz. Lovely. I'm so pleased to hear that. So fabulous. And they will pass. You won't have them in the future. Your baby won't do that. So make the most of them. Nor has come and said, what are your thoughts on Gina Ford and her cry out method for sleep training? Well, we have, we've been looked at research to do with what's happening with cortisol levels in babies. And research suggests that when babies are left to cry, they eventually go to sleep and the baby's cortisol level stays really high. The mother's cortisol level, which is high when the baby's crying, drops. So she's fine, but the baby isn't. The baby maintains a high cortisol level. So it tends to go away. This crying out goes moves away from what we talk about with relationship building and responsiveness and closeness and comforting of the baby. Babies' brains need to be bathed in oxytocin, and babies are unable to self-soothe. They can't do it. They will eventually just give up and despair. So when a baby's crying, they are looking for you as the caregiver, us as the caregivers, to meet their needs, to calm them down, to sort their problems, which might just be a cuddle, and allow them to go to sleep. So from our point of view, from a UNICEF BFI baby friendly initiative point of view, we wouldn't be advocating crying out. We would be soothing the baby, meeting the baby's needs, and not leaving the baby to cry. Hard as it is, I know it's really tough, but it's also extremely hard for a mother to listen to her baby crying, because that goes totally against a mother's intuition. Most mothers, if they've ever tried it, will tell you how heartbreaking it is to listen to their baby crying, and really all they want to do is go and pick their baby up. So we would not be advocating crying out. We would be advocating meeting those babies' needs, soothing them, calming them, because they cannot spoil it. You cannot spoil a baby. They are not capable of manipulating you. They have not got the brain development. They will later, absolutely. When they get that glint in their eye when they're 3 or something, when they've worked out how to get round mummy or daddy. But when they're babies, they do not, and they just need us to meet their needs. So not for us. No, I would be saying meet baby's needs and not crying it out. Nora's come back. Hello, what are your... Oh, that we've done that one. Oh, it carried on, I see. 3 months old. Oh, I see. Now I see the rest of your question, Nora. I'm so sorry. I only saw the first part. It came as the second part on there. I totally get that you're in need of consistent sleep. I totally get that. It may be thinking about, so 3 months old, can you fit more feeds in the day? Can you sort of try and front load that just before you go to bed? What about a dream feed? Can you fit a dream feed in before you go to bed? So maybe your baby's already in bed, scoop them up, give them a feed before, see what you can do with that. Thinking about, again, like we talked about earlier, about a t-shirt that smells of you, something that's reassuring, because they're going to wake up because they're just looking to know you're there. They need you to meet their needs. I absolutely get, when you're so sleep deprived, it's so hard, you'll try anything, but it is, the research does say that the poor babies, their cortisol levels stay really high, and that isn't great for the baby. It really isn't. Even when they do go to sleep, their cortisol levels stay high. So maybe just try front loading a bit of feeding, trying dream feeds. If you can get a dream feed in as you're climbing into bed yourself, that might get your baby to sleep that little bit longer. Just try some of the other things that you might be, rather than leaving your baby to cry. And I think you'll find it's really tough if you haven't done it already. Mums who have done it find it really hard. Hattie's come. Thank you very much for what I've said. My pleasure. Thank you, Hattie. Charlotte said, she said she hopes I'm keeping safe and well. I am keeping safe and well. Thank you very much. Still in isolation because my daughter's still not right, but hopefully back at work next week. But I'm fine. Thank you. Claire's come on, one of our OMV people. Do you have any tips on favouritism? Fitz loves the left side. This is a nightmare on the right. Hope you're well, Claire. Oh, Claire, I bet he's huge now. He was a big baby in the beginning. Claire, have you tried feeding him underarm on that other side? So you pretend that you've got 2 of the same breast. That's one of the things we do suggest. And I know that he's probably quite a big baby because he wasn't small when he was born. So that might not be so easy. So it's thinking about, if you're feeding him on the left, normally in that position, it's thinking about maybe you can bring him underarm on the right. Because then he thinks he's dealing with 2 left breasts, so that might work. That's one of the things we do try. But they're cheeky monkeys, aren't they? These babies, they work out what side they like the best, and it's not always the same. I was talking to someone the other day, and their baby's swapped which side it prefers and pushed the mother's supply up on one side. That's what we would normally suggest, Claire, is trying underarm on the side that they don't like quite so much. Because sometimes it's something to do with us. It's the way we hold the baby. So actually moving that baby underarm might make the difference. So try Fitz underarm. Now when you're doing underarm, this is where I say, because he said, I know he's not tiny, your Fitz, is thinking about making enough room for him. So thinking about when you're doing it, that he's got enough room behind for him. So you're going to be pushing in cushions behind you in line with your back, that he's got lots of room to put his legs, because otherwise he's going to push. So if you're on a sofa, then having a sofa with cushions that come out the back and lining all the back cushions up behind you in line with your back here, so that he's got loads of room to go further back, because he will have to be a long way back. But that might be one way, and certainly one of the ways that we deal with it is to take that baby onto the underarm on that side. You may have already tried it, and sorry if you have, but that's the normal course of action, because then we pretend that you've got 2 left breasts, and it might help. So good luck with that. Amy has said her baby boy is 6 weeks old now, and I've noticed after feeds he sounds as if he's grunting and straining. He does have a bit of colic. Is it possible it's linked with that, or shall I be concerned? And many babies do. I mean, many babies will be pooing while they're at the breast. You know, there's no hold bar when it comes to this. You know, babies will often feed and poo at the same time, and that's probably what's happening. If you think about it, he's feeding, he's getting food into his digestive system, and it's getting everything moving. His whole digestive system's working, and and babies really don't put a nice gloss on it. They really show you how they feel. So where you or I might feel a little something in our tummy and just not react, a baby will tell you all about it. So it's quite possible it is really related, and he's got a little bit of discomfort, but as long as it isn't causing him lots of problems, then I think that you shouldn't be concerned. As long as he's pooing and weeing appropriate to age. I know I always say this, pooing and weeing appropriate to age, gaining weight appropriately, and meeting all his milestones, then we wouldn't be concerned. And as long as you're happy, he's healthy and well. But well done for getting 6 weeks. I know you've put stuff up here before. Emma has come on and said, great, that's and she appreciated the detailed answer. Good, because I did go off on one. Hattie said, thank you for your advice. Oh, Anita. Hello, Anita. How are you? And Elijah. Oh, poor Anita. She's been having a few problems. We've had a bit of time together, and she's just saying her little boy Elijah, who's just dropped dead gorgeous, as they all are, has been avoiding to latch on to breastfeed. But when she expresses, he takes it. Oh, that's really heartbreaking, Anita. Would it be worth you getting in touch with La Leche or someone like that to get a bit more support going forward? I don't know, I can't remember how old he'll be now. He's quite old now, I should think. So it might be worth just trying to get a bit more support there, Anita, and just see. And remembering skin to skin. I know we talk about it on these sessions over and over and over again, but you can't underestimate how good skin to skin is from the point of view of keeping, getting a baby at the breast and feeding. It is really, really fantastic. It's a really good way of keeping the baby going. So thinking about that, maybe pop him back, loads of skin to skin, Anita. Remind him the breast is a nice place to be. Remind him how much fun he's had breastfeeding in the past, and see how you get on. And then, if that's still not working, contact someone like OBS or La Leche, or get in touch with us again, and see if there's anything more we can do for you. But I am sorry to hear that, Anita, though. But I'm sure he's just so gorgeous. He's a lovely baby. She's come back with how old he is. 12 weeks now, gosh, but he's huge. So, and Amy's come back saying he's breastfed. I assumed he was actually, Amy, and well done for that. Susan's come back, so this is really helpful. Thank you so much for taking the time to do these videos. My pleasure. It's been lovely. We enjoy doing them. And Charlotte's baby's 6 months old now. Tomorrow. Happy 6 months to her tomorrow. That's amazing. You'll be thinking about giving other foods now as well. Isn't that incredible that you'll be introducing other foods? Incredible. If you want to have a look at information about introducing solid foods, then there is a booklet on the UNICEF Baby Friendly Initiative about introducing solid foods. It's all about there, talking about how you can go about it and what to try, and it's really good. It's a really good resource. I know we talk about UNICEF Baby Friendly Initiative on here a lot, but it's because it is a very, very good resource, and it covers all things to do with feeding. So and Nora's come back. Thank you so much. She says I'm brilliant. Thank you very much. And have a great answer for everything. I try. It's not always easy. Sometimes I feel put on the spot, but other times but the questions are lovely. You always ask us such nice questions. Wow, we've got to 3:24. I can't believe it's gone so quick, and I don't think I have any more questions. But I'm hoping that's okay. Do write any more questions now in the next couple of minutes, because obviously I'm normally going to finish at about past. So if you've got anything else to ask, Thank you for the questions you've put up today. Always, as always, fabulous questions. Really good. And I'm sure that a lot of the questions that people have put up have answered questions other people had. So, you know, it's really good. Never hesitate to put a question up, because invariably there'll be other people there sitting there thinking, I wish I'd asked that. No, I wished I'd asked, you know, I knew that the answer to that. So Marion's come back and said thank you as well. And I thank you for being involved, because I can tell you now, it'd be very boring if you lot didn't put questions up. We wouldn't, I would sit here just talking and it'd be boring. So anyway, if there are no more questions, rush in now. I will say goodbye and we'll be in touch next week. Oh, I've got another one snuck in at the gap. Louise has come. Would taking fenugreek prior to baby's arrival help with milk production, or should it only be taken after the baby's born and milk production is low? Right, so anything you do before you have your baby doesn't have an impact, not even the expressing. So milk production is driven by milk removal after the baby is born. So mothers who hand express in the antenatal period have a buffer, a bit of milk for their baby when the baby's born, but it doesn't mean they'll have more milk later. What it means is they've just got that buffer. Once the baby is born and the placenta has been delivered, that's when you make the biggest impact. So once the baby's born, we want lots and lots and lots of milk removal. So as soon as that baby's born, we want lots of feeding. If the baby's not feeding, that's why we'll be encouraging you to express. And if the baby's still not attaching, we'll be getting you onto the pump as soon as your milk looks like it's coming in, because milk supply is driven by milk removal. And if you don't remove the milk, you don't have a milk supply. And I know I've said it before, but it's because what happens is, if the women who choose not to breastfeed, within 24 hours will feel reasonably comfortable. So that shows you how quickly the milk supply goes down if you don't remove the milk. So it's what you do after the baby's born that has an impact. So fenugreek beforehand won't have an impact. And we'd only be suggesting something, a galactagogue, something that increases your milk supply if there were problems. So milk removal is crucial. Nothing works better than removing the milk. So it is getting the baby feeding well at the breast. If the baby's not feeding well, it's backing up with hand expressing. And if we've got to the point where it's mature milk, it would be getting you on a pump and really maximising your milk supply that way. So fenugreek has a place, but in the postnatal period, not in the antenatal period. So I hope that helps. A bit categorical, but that was to Louise. So yeah, we would only use a galactagogue, something that increases your milk, in the postnatal period, and only if it looked like there was a problem with the milk supply. But expressing milk removal, so baby feeding or expressing any form of milk removal, is what we would be working on first and foremost. So Amy has put a question too. I know you said to feed to supply. Would you suggest if baby's still hungry but no more milk is coming? Baby not arrived yet, but this is a worry of mine. So I've covered that a bit with what I've just said, actually, Amy, in that what you do is you push your milk supply. So if you go into it knowing that that you're, you know, if your baby's not doing a great job at the breast, you're going to express to push your supply, you will have enough milk. There really is a very, very small percentage of women in the world who cannot produce milk for their babies. The majority of women who struggle with their milk production is because it hasn't been removed. So if you think about milk production is driven by milk removal, get your baby feeding. If your baby's not feeding brilliantly, get hand expressing. When your milk comes in, if that's still not the case, if it's still struggling, get on the pump. And we'd be looking at milk removal after the first 24 hours of a minimum of 8 times in 24 hours. And we'd be looking at increasing and increasing and increasing. And I said already that, you know, we're talking about a newborn baby having a tiny, weeny tummy. And by the end of a week, we're up to here. So it's a really big change. And that's what the milk supply is capable of doing, it as long as we ask for it. You have to ask for it. It doesn't just happen. And I know some women think, well, I don't need to do anything, my milk will come in. Yes, it will come in, but it won't come in as well if you haven't been removing the milk. So be reassured, Amy, it's your baby's ability to remove the milk, and you, if you have to, hand expressing, that will ensure that you've got the milk to meet your baby's needs. So don't worry about it. It will happen as long as you're aware and keep ahead of the baby. You should be fine. Marta said, I don't know if you said at the beginning, about partners allowed in now in labour. Nothing's changed. Marta, nothing has changed. Partners are still coming in for labour. It's exactly as it was before lockdown. They haven't changed anything, though. We've never had a situation where partners haven't come for labour. So don't worry, your partners are still coming in for labour. So, and that didn't get asked, by the way. So I'm sure other people have thought it. Does he say sorry at the end? No problem. I can see there are more questions. Just need to get to them. Amy said, thank you. Good. I hope that made sense. Francesca, just wondering if there's an age when babies will start needing less than 8 feeds in 24 hours, or is that always the minimum until they wean? Pretty much, and many babies will even have more than that. You know, many babies, because I said to you, if babies feed for comfort and not just for food, you're their world as a mom. You make sense of the world for them. They just love to check in. Some babies feed more, some babies feed less. Some babies are really, really effective, and I've met babies who've been sent to breastfeeding clinic because they feed in 4 minutes, and someone's been concerned about them, and we weigh this baby and we look at its poos and wees, and this baby's doing absolutely brilliantly on 4-minute feeds. You know, and maybe 6 or 7 a day, but that's the combination that mother's obviously got a good milk supply, it lets down really quickly, and that baby's efficient at the breast. Feeds will vary, like you have maybe, you know, some days, maybe on the weekend, you take your time over your breakfast. If you're rushing to work, you'll be quick and eat your breakfast really quickly. And you'll have periods of the day where you might eat more or less, and one day's going to be different to the other. So babies are exactly the same, and they get so much more than just food from breastfeeding. So if you went to other parts of the world and said to them, how many times do you feed in a day? Some mothers who have their baby strapped to their front would have absolutely no idea, because the baby will be checking in and out, having little feeds and not having big feeds, and they'll just have numerous feeds in a 24 hours. So we anticipate that babies will feed somewhere between 8 and 13, but it varies tremendously amongst babies. Babies that are struggling with weight gain, if they're having less than 8 feeds in the 24 hours, we would instigate that they have a minimum of 8 feeds in 24 hours. If a baby's gaining beautifully, no concerns, and they're feeding 6 times in 24 hours, we're not going to change anything because they're doing a great job anyway. So it really is very much seeing and very much what you end up with as a baby. And seeing how you get on. So, Francesca, at this point in time, I'm afraid a lot of our answers are airy-fairy when it comes to feeding, because there's no hard and fast rules, but that's what we look at as a ballpark, as 8 in 24. But, right, I think we're at past. If there's any other questions, pop them up now. Otherwise, I shall say goodbye until next week. But, it's been lovely seeing you all, and as I said, you know, the questions are what make it, and I'm sure that there are so many people who listen who think, oh, you know, that's the question I wanted to ask. So thank you to those that posed them, because it really does make a difference. It wouldn't be worth doing otherwise. And nice to see all your little icons up. It almost feels like I'm talking to someone because I can see your icons. So I'm going to say goodbye because I can't see anything else coming up. No flurry coming up now. Keep in touch and use those services out there, the Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support, La Leche League. Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support are running some antenatal sessions. I know that there was one this week, so I'm a bit late to plug that one. It's happened already. But do check. If you're an antenatal lady, do check and see, you know, which whether you can slot yourself into one of their antenatal sessions. They're free. You just join them. I think it's on Zoom. They will be fabulous because they're a really good organisation. They'll give you some fantastic skills to get you off to a good start with feeding. Thank you, Francesca, for coming back and thanking me. And thank you to all of you. And I shall say goodbye now. So see you next week.